With Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny premiering in theaters later this month, I decided to finally sit down and watch all 4 movies for the first time, something that I've been wanting to do for a while but just never really got to. If you've been following this channel, you know I already did Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom, so you can check those out to see my thoughts, but today I saw The Last Crusade. As a refresher to anyone who hasn't seen it in a while, the movie follows intrepid explorer Indiana Jones as he sets out to rescue his father, a medievalist who has vanished while searching for the Holy Grail. Following clues in the old man's book, Indy arrives in Venice, where he enlists the help of a beautiful academic, but they are not the only ones who are on the trail, and some sinister old enemies soon come out of the woodwork. Like the other 2 Indiana Jones films that I've seen so far, this one was enjoyable enough for me, but I do think it was my least favorite of the 3. It had some good moments, but it also had a fair amount of sequences that felt bland or could go on too long. The runtime was in line with the first 2 films, but for me it felt like much longer, just because of some of the scenes that I thought could have been bettered by being cut a little shorter. The main one that comes to mind is the action in the desert when Marcus and Indy's father are stuck in the tank. At first I was enjoying the action, but it did feel like it went on unnecessarily long, and by the time I was halfway into it, I was already ready to move on in the story, rather than to keep watching these Nazis get beat up by the top of the tank. Unlike the first 2 films, I don't think there was really any action sequence that stood out to me after watching it that would be something I'd look forward to on the rewatch. It all just felt like very much the same over and over again. Something that I did really like about this film, though, is the way that it opens up. I was caught a bit off edge during the Raiders of the Lost Ark, when it begins in the middle of adventure and the discovery goes on to mean nothing for the movie. But I think by now I've gotten used to it and it's starting to embrace it. Even though some of the fights can be a little goofy, I liked seeing a younger Indiana Jones and a small piece of what his relationship with his father was like when he was young. And then it immediately connects to the present-day story, where we see him finally recover the cross after so many years. This was something that surprised me coming into these movies, but the moments where Indiana Jones is not on an adventure, but dealing with his students and day-to-day life as a professor, have been some of my favorites in the franchise. Everything else seems to be goofy, but these moments feel very real and do more for me to care and connect about the protagonist. Other than Indy, of course, because he carries over from the other films, there weren't really any other characters that I found myself drawn to all that much. Schneider, the German doctor, was an upgrade from Willie in the Temple of Doom, but still doesn't get too much characterization throughout, other than a spare moment here or there. The complicated relationships and deception done by her involved with both Indy and his father did make for a few good laughs early on. The villains were alright in this one, but I don't think the idea of the Nazis getting a hold of the Holy Grail works without the audience having some background knowledge on the group and the harm they've caused. There isn't much described about any of them in the story, meaning I as a viewer had to add my own stakes and the reasons behind what was being pursued. Throughout much of the story, I could feel the energetic and comedic hole left by the exclusion of Short Round, but Indy's father seemed to be the attempt at creating this new complex relationship with Indy. The father-son relationship had some good moments to it, and it finally started to see some obvious development near the end, but I was a bit disappointed with what I got. I had come into this one with no knowledge other than the fact that it was most people's favorites, so I did have high expectations, and this just didn't live up to it. A major point in my review for Temple of Doom was the visual effects of the film, and how rough some of them looked. And with Last Crusade 5 years after Temple of Doom, I did notice near the end that there were much fewer moments where a green screen was obviously used, but there were a few times where it looked its age, specifically during the air combat after the Jones escapes the blimp and uses a biplane to land on the ground. So once again, I had a fun time watching this for the first time, but I wouldn't necessarily put this in the category of films I'm dying to rewatch. It has some problems when it comes to production and storytelling, but isn't really made as something to dive deep into. It's just made to be a good time with some laughs in between the action. My viewing for the 4th Indiana Jones movie should be coming out in the next few days as we approach Dial of Destiny, so be sure to be on the lookout for that. Comment down below what you think of The Last Crusade and what videos you'd like to see in the future. Remember to like the video and subscribe for more movie content, and follow me on my various platforms listed in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.